As we meet today, horrific violence continues to unfold in Khartoum. Hundreds are dead, thousands have been wounded. The staff of humanitarian aid organizations have been assaulted and killed. A reminder of the dangers our diplomats, humanitarian and development workers at USAID face as they carry out their mission every day. I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say how relieved I was to hear about the successful evacuation of our officials from Sudan. But I agree with administration officials we cannot and must not abandon the Sudanese people. Nor will insecurity deter us from our work in other parts of the continent and other places in the world. Russia's war in Ukraine is driving up food, fertilizer, and energy costs all over the globe. 48 million people in West Africa are experiencing food insecurity. Climate change is fueling record floods around the world, from Pakistan to Nigeria, and extreme droughts in Brazil and Central Asia. Additionally, the threat of state-sponsored death squads, criminal gangs, and sexual violence is driving millions and millions of people to flee their homes, creating a growing migration crisis across continents and hemispheres. So, Administrator Power, do you think we are prepared? Because while your budget request is an improvement compared to past years, given the challenges and risks we face right now, and the shocks and stresses we will face in the future, I am concerned that this budget is not ambitious enough. Successful U.S. foreign policy requires a balance between the 3 Ds of defense, diplomacy, and development. Development is effectively the ounce of provision for the pound of cure we see in places like Sudan right now. It cannot be an afterthought for the United States, and it certainly is not an afterthought in Beijing. China is outspending us and outflanking us when it comes to international development and development diplomacy. I would argue American international development is driven by a desire to support people seeking to improve their own lives, to help build strong societal and governance structures that facilitate sustainable economic growth. That stands in stark contrast to China's development approach, which amounts to foreign infrastructure investment, which I think is fair to say does not come from the goodness of Xi Jinping's heart. Rather, it is a tool Beijing uses effectively to influence and shape the direction of nations around the globe. Their efforts ignore workers' rights, destroy the environment, saddle local communities seeking critical infrastructure projects with faulty bridges and roads. We need to up our game to be responsive to the types of infrastructure projects so many nations need. We can build the world's best hospitals, the smoothest roads, the most efficient power grids, but when the United States invests in local infrastructure, we also have to make sure that the host communities know what we are doing, that they know the United States model of development and investment brings needed, trusted, and sustainable partnerships for growth. I also think that when democratic nations try to do the right thing, USAID needs to be able to move quickly. We must be agile and ready to support those democracies facing economic hardship. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on whether USAID has what it needs to show that democracies can deliver for their people, because oftentimes USAID moves slower than molasses. Case in point, the humanitarian crisis for Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh is only getting worse. Where are we? Why aren't we airlifting humanitarian supplies to those Armenians facing Baku's blockade? We need to respond to events quickly, and we also need to address root causes. I think you'd agree with me that international development must be about more than sending tents to people impacted by an earthquake or hurricane. It has to be about making strategic investments that address the needs of people on the ground, about strengthening the systems and institutions countries need to be resilient in the future, about creating good-paying local jobs, and about supporting the peace and prosperity people need to raise a family rather than be forced to flee their homeland. So, Administrator Power, I look forward to hearing your testimony, updating us on your progress since last year. With that, let me turn to the ranking member for his opening statement.